Yo, what is going on, guys? Welcome back to another video. So if you're watching this video, that means that the Florida Panthers are your 2025 Stanley Cup champions, whether or not they won in Game 6 or Game 7. I don't know because I'm filming this before Game 6, but they have done it yet again, beating the Edmonton Oilers in the Stanley Cup final. So like I did last year, as soon as whenever the Florida Panthers won their games, won the Cup in Game 7, I am going to be ranking the last 10 Stanley Cup champions dating back to the 2016 Pittsburgh Penguins. And yeah, this is going to be based on who I think the best teams were based on their resume as well as their roster construction, which is going to be a little bit tough because with these 2025 Panthers, not the best regular season. They kind of coasted with 96 points, but as you can imagine, they're going to be pretty high on this list. So yeah, let's get it started again. This is no slight to any of these teams. These teams are all very valid Stanley Cup champions. There are no flukes. There's a couple fluke finalists in the last decade or so. In terms of the champions, these were all absolute juggernauts. So yeah, I just got to preface that because at number 10, I got the 2023 Vegas Golden Knights. Again, a very, very, very good team. 111-point team that went on to win the Stanley Cup, going 16-6. Just didn't quite have those superstar kind of top 5 players that we're going to talk about maybe later that would have fully put them over the top when comparing them to other Stanley Cup winners. Eichel and Stone, still superstars. Pietrangelo was still a high-level defenseman. And this team had depth on depth on depth. Guys like Shea Theodore, Marchessault, Carlson, Chandler Stevenson when he was still a damn good player, Riley Smith, as well as Aiden Hill emerging in that Stanley Cup run. They're awesome. They are definitely a damn good team, and I think my bottom 3 are kind of interchangeable. So by no means am I saying that the Vegas Golden Knights are a distant 10th. They're still a very good team at number 9. I have the 2019 St. Louis Blues in kind of a similar vibe to the Vegas Golden Knights. No true top 10 player, but led by 2 elite forwards in Ryan O'Reilly and Tarasenko, as well as Alex Pietrangelo, probably a better version of Alex Pietrangelo. Back in 2019, in terms of depth, Braden Shen, David Perron, Jaden Schwartz, Alex Steen, Tyler Bozak, a young Robert Thomas, a young Ivan Barbashev. In terms of their defense core, besides Pietrangelo, Dunn, Parayko, Bouwmeester, Edmondson, Bertuzzo, as well as Jordan Binnington coming out of nowhere, putting up a 927 in the regular season. He only played 32 games and he was top 5 in the Vezina that year, as well as a 914 in the playoffs. They beat one of the best Cup finalists, I think, of the last decade in those 2019 Boston Bruins. And under Berube, once he got hired to finish out the regular season, they went 39, 19, and 6. They were an absolute juggernaut, kind of like a team of destiny, and they got it done for the Stanley Cup. Next up at number 8, I got the 2017 Pittsburgh Penguins. 111 points, offensive wagon, defensively not amazing. Led the league in goals for, 17th in goals against. Still had their big 3 being absolutely elite coming off the Stanley Cup the year prior, as well as some solid depth in guys like Hornquist, Gensel, Rust, and Schultz. During their playoff run, they did lose Chris Letang, but they were that good that they still overcame that and got the Stanley Cup. At number 7, I got the Washington Capitals. Funny enough, this probably wasn't their best team technically, considering the prior 2 years they won the President's Trophy, but they still had 105 points this season. Their core players were still ultra elite, like Braden Holtby, Alexander Ovechkin, John Carlson, Nicholas Backstrom, I almost said Kuzmenko. Kuznetsov had 32 points in this playoff run. A young Tom Wilson. Oshie was still killing, or was still a star in the NHL for the most part. Dmitry Orlov, Andrei Burakovsky. Just a very balanced group with some real stars. They check in at number 7. At number 16, I got the 2016 Penguins. When looking at it, once Mike Sullivan took over, this team was an absolute wagon, going 33-16-5, wiped the floor, by far the best offense in the NHL. Under Mike Sullivan, scoring 3.24 goals per game, which I know doesn't sound like that much right now compared to what teams are scoring a decade later, but that was 0.15 more than any other team. And yeah, they had a really hard cup run, one of the most hardest cup runs that we have seen in the 21st century in the Cap era. In the first round, they played the Rangers. Then they went on to play the Tampa Bay Lightning, as well as a veteran-laden San Jose Sharks team in the Stanley Cup final. So when you look at the overall resume, again, overall in the regular season, it doesn't look that impressive because they were underwhelming to start. But under Mike Sullivan, this team was fantastic, and they check in at number 6. At number 5, The 2020 Tampa Bay Lightning. The prior season, they were 128 points, but then, of course, got swept by the Columbus Blue Jackets. They had 92 points in 70 games before the COVID shutdown. Good for 108 points. Of course, at that deadline, they added Barclay Goodrow, back when he was a really effective player, as well as Blake Coleman. Vasilevsky, Hedman, Kucherov were all probably the best in the league at their position at that time. They were the best offense in the NHL, checking in at first, as well as ninth in goals against. And they won the Stanley Cup, even despite not having Steven Stamkos. It was damn impressive. Beat my Islanders, of course, in the conference finals, and then beat the Dallas Stars. They are number 5. At number 4, I got the 2024 Florida Panthers, coming off a season where they barely snuck into the playoffs and made the Cup final. They were a 110-point wagon in the regular season. Then they had a pretty tough Cup route when looking at the fact that they played Tampa Bay in the first round, then Boston, then New York. They didn't even see a Game 7 leading up to that, and then beat the McDavid Oilers, denied McDavid of his first Stanley Cup. And when you look at that team compared to the 2023 team, they added Oliver Ekman-Larsson, Evan Rodriguez, Niko Mikkola, Tarasenko, and Kulikov. So they finally had the depth to get it done. Of course, had Barkov, who was still still is a top 10 player in the NHL, Matthew Tkachuk, Verhaeghe, Sam Bennett. They were absolutely awesome, both in the regular season as well as the playoffs. I think 4 is a valid spot for the 2024 Florida Panthers. At number 3, I got the 2021 Tampa Bay Lightning. They basically ran back the exact same team as 2020, but had a healthy Steven Stamkos, as well as adding David Savard at the deadline. No Kucherov in the regular season, and they were still a 109-point pace team during the COVID-shortened season. Very well balanced, again, without Kucherov, 6th in the NHL in goals for, 8th in goals against. And then come playoff time, although they might have had like the easiest route in terms of making a Stanley Cup final, especially within the Stanley Cup final, playing the Montreal Canadiens, who at that point were gassed. Carey Price was gassed. Vasilevsky still had a 937 in those playoffs. It's one of the best playoff runs of all time by a goaltender. But yeah, especially even though the path was a little bit easier compared to prior teams, the fact that they were a reigning Stanley Cup champion, they're one of the best teams of the 21st century. So they're at number 3. At number 2, you know who's remaining at this point. I'm going to go with the 2025 Florida Panthers. It's basically the same team as last year, but minus Montour, minus Tarasenko, and adding Seth Jones, who I think is better than Brandon Montour, and of course adding Brad Marchand, who's far better than Vladimir Tarasenko, and Nate Schmidt on a goddamn 1-year deal at $800,000. When looking at them in the regular season, they only had 98 points, but we can all agree they were coming off back-to-back Stanley Cup finals. They were tired. They kind of coasted. Matthew Tkachuk went on LTIR. They didn't give a shit about the regular season. And come playoff time, beat a much better Tampa team compared to the prior year yet again in 5 games. Toronto did give them a decent scare, but they blew them out on Toronto's home ice in Game 5 as well as Game 7. Dogged Carolina in the Eastern Conference Finals. And then took care of an Edmonton team that Hyman wasn't playing, so it's tough, but definitely was a deeper Edmonton team compared to the year prior in 6 games, or at least I'm recording this before Game 6, so I'm going to say 6, maybe it is 7, instead of 7 games the year prior. I think that they might have one of the best top 9s of all time. I did not think it was going to be possible to top that Tampa Bay 2021 top line or 2020 team, but this is one of the best top 9. The third line of Luostarinen, Lundell, and Marchand is absolutely ridiculous. And I think the 2021 Tampa Bay Lightning might be a little bit more talented, but the physicality that the 2025 Florida Panthers have is just truly next level. Something that compared to the other teams, maybe you can compare it to the 2018 Capitals, Tom Wilson, Devontae Pelly-Smith, but when looking at it, this team was so smash-mouthed and really just ran through the other team. You could call them dirty, but it was effective, and as a result, they're second. Then at number 1, I got the 2022 Colorado Avalanche. When looking at this team in the regular season, 119 points, 3rd in goals for, 7th in goals against, had the 2nd and 3rd best player in the NHL at the time. Cale Makar was coming off maybe the best defenseman season of the 21st century, at least since Nicholas Lidstrom, as well as Nathan MacKinnon, the 2nd best player probably in the NHL at the time, as well as depth on depth on depth. Devontae's, Landeskog, Kadri had 87 points in 71 games that year. Valery Nichushkin, Burakovsky, Lehkonen, Girard, Byram, Manson, Comfer. They went 16-4 in the playoffs. That is insane. And even in net, yes, you could say that Darcy Kemper didn't have a good of a playoff run, but again, they still went 16-4 with Darcy Kemper playing pretty mediocre. But in the regular season, Darcy Kemper had a .921 with 21 goals saved above expected. He is a damn good goaltender, just had one bad playoff run. So I think that they're definitely the most skilled cup winner of the 21st century, in my opinion, when you compare that to some other teams. So yeah, they're still my number one. I could see an argument just given the physicality of the 2025 Florida Panthers and even 2021 Lightning. I think you could throw in the mix. But in my opinion, the 2022 Avalanche were just such a well-oiled machine and dominated both in the regular season as well as in the playoffs, unlike we have seen any other team. Did they have the toughest playoff run of all time? I'll be honest, I'll concede on that. Nashville, St. Louis, then an Edmonton team that really wasn't quite there yet, and then Tampa Bay without Braden Point. But still, they dominated. They didn't see a single Game 7 in 2 sweeps. So I go with the 2022 Colorado Avalanche. But here's the full list. Let me know in the comments what do you think. Again, I think the top 3 are all not interchangeable. I'd stand by it, but that's like the clear top 3 in my opinion. Then 20 Lightning, 24 Panthers are kind of in the same tier. 16 Penguins, 18 Capitals are in the same tier. And then that bottom 3 is kind of in the same tier as well. Let me know in the comments, what do you think? Who would you move up? Who would you move down? Congratulations to the Florida Panthers on winning the Stanley Cup. I'll be seeing the next one. The University of Miami Hurricanes for football are going to bring home a title in a couple of months from now. I'll be seeing the next one. Peace.